I want to kind of go through the origins of your company, starting with Sarah, and just talk to us a little bit about how it came to be, where the inspiration came from, like your elevator pitch as to what you do.
Sure. So I run a nonprofit here in Austin, Texas called Well Aware, and we have been doing work in East Africa for 8 years now. Wow. I was a lawyer before that, but I was recruited to help on a project in Kenya, and I got really, really involved. And I went over there for the first time, and between meeting all of the people and seeing the impact of the work, where we did our first water well, I decided to change the direction of my life entirely, take a really significant pay cut, and create this nonprofit that is just doing better and better every year, in large part because of our supporters and board members like Brian, and guidance from these really great, intelligent people. And because of our success, we formed another entity, a for-profit, that does consulting in the same field. Oh, wow. This time last year, and that's starting to do well, too. So now we're navigating a brand new, beautiful challenge, which is how those two entities work together, and how to create a sustainable machine that can continue to do this work as long as the work is needed.
Cool. And then when you say this work, you're talking about drilling water wells.
Yeah, I didn't mention that part, did I?
It's Friday.
It is Friday. We're one beer in.
And I've had a beer. I have a second. Yes. So the first project we did, it was supposed to be, when I got recruited to help on this project in Kenya, it was supposed to be to replace some of the cattle and goats that were dying in this village in Kenya. But I realized it was due to the drought and the lack of access to water. And after more research, I proposed to the people working on the project that, why don't we try to drill a water well, because that's the root cause of this problem and all the other problems. Wow, okay. And so we raised the money and we flew over to Kenya, and we drilled a water well. I mean, not me personally. We found people with the equipment. But we got really, really lucky. That's a really long answer to your question, but
That's right.
Knowing what I know now, there's a lot more that goes into this kind of work. And I realized later that only 1 in 7 of the water wells that are drilled in that area on our first project yield any water at all. So those are the odds of us hitting water. And I'm certain if we had not hit water, I would not be doing what I'm doing now.
Wow.
But I quickly learned that most of the water charity doesn't work in these developing countries. So I put together a model to really evaluate what the true community needs are, and then offer a solution that the community approves, that we implement. So we do new wells, we drill boreholes, but we also rehabilitate other projects that have been abandoned if it's a good candidate for rehab. And then we do rainwater harvesting as well as gravity-driven pipeline work.
Wow.
Based
Fantastic.
on what's right for the community, each community.
And the community's involved in there
Every step of the way.
the whole way.
The whole way, yeah.
Okay. And when you're sourcing like work for those projects, is the community involved in that decision as well?
Absolutely. And besides the drilling company and then the equipment providers, we use skilled labor from the region, from the community, for further community buy-in and ownership. Fantastic. But yeah, at every phase, the community has to sign off on where we're going, the project plan. And then when we're there for implementation, then we go through all kinds of training for maintenance of the water system, but also sanitation and hygiene training and general accounting if the community needs that. But we plug in what they need, and we don't dump off onto them anything that they don't need.
What we think that they need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
So
a big problem. That happens a lot.
I have so many questions about all of that. But before we get into that, I want to introduce Brian, who also has a very fun, interesting, and conscious business model. Talk to us a little bit about where that came from and kind of your background.
You did throw up air quotes again around conscious.
I did, yeah.
We'll have to talk about the reasoning for that in a few.
I put quotes about them buzzwords. So
great.
It's like a barrier to keep me away from buying into the fads.
Awesome. Our goal is definitely to serve people. And the parent company of our business is Vuka Collective. And Vuka is a Zulu word, and it means wake up or to awaken. So our goal in everything that we do is aimed at enriching people's lives, both personally and professionally. And we have 3 verticals that we do that in. We offer mission-minded people using business for good, co-working space, shared workspace, and office space. And then we have event space where we do lots of community-minded endeavors like Sarah's, doing lots of amazing events, community engagement, fundraisers in the space. And then we also have personal and professional development workshops underneath the brand of Wake Up.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what it's turned into, and I don't want to go too far in the backstory. Let you kind of guide.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing I've seen that, and drawing just a parallel from both of y'all's stories, is the engagement of community.
Yep.
Right. Yours is more local and home, and with Sarah's being in understanding communities abroad.
Yeah.
So Sarah, one thing that really surprised me when I checked out your website and did some research.
You did do research.
Not too much research, but was the impact of lack of water on the communities in Africa. And I think that's something that we try and, generally speaking, from a distance, like it's so hard to create empathy for another culture. When you what was your shift from being a lawyer, right, previously, into that first volunteer endeavor? Like, what surprised you about that culture, and what the issues were and the underlying causes?
It did surprise me a lot, and I was really humbled by that because I was a really cocky young, lawyer, and I thought I was super globally informed, and I realized I was not. And getting to be in those communities for the first time and not even try to live like they do, but just walk beside them for a few hours and understanding the impact that it had specifically on women in their lives, because it's their job and the children's job to collect the water, to spend hours and hours a day, which doesn't just eat up their day and prevent kids from going to school. It also, subjects them to violence and lots of other issues and increased disease rates.
How would that have happened? Like, how would that subject them to violence?
So when they're walking long distances by themselves, then some bad things happen.
They're vulnerable in that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, and so then. So that, and just seeing how sick the children were for no other reason except for that they were drinking dirty water from the river that was filled with bacteria, and talking to mothers whose babies just kept dying because the breast milk that they were producing to feed the kids was not enough, and because they weren't hydrated enough to keep the kids alive, the babies alive. And so experiencing that on the same trip where I got to see water coming out of the ground for the first time, where most of these people had never seen plentiful clean water before ever in their lives, and just seeing the looks on their faces and understanding how their lives, these thousands of people, how their lives were going to dramatically change just from that one day, and that basic solution, is why I pivoted. And pivot is, I guess, kind of it's a small word for a really big change, but it had that kind of an impact on me. I just wanted to drop everything else and do it.
I can't imagine that the look on their faces when they see something they work hours and hours a day for just flowing out of the ground, clear and clean. And
almost disbelief,
it's like magic.
Yeah, it's a mix of disbelief and incredible relief and just this really, really happy release of previous sadness, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And so have you seen in the communities that you've worked with, what are some changes you've seen in their culture and their structure?
Yeah, that is the most incredible part of the work in my job, because now that we've been implementing these projects for 8 years, we get to go back to systems that have been installed years before, and it will look like a different place altogether.
Wow.
I'll give an example. In Daba, where we worked in a really dry area in northern Kenya, when we first got to that location, all they had was this open, hand-dug water well. It was not much of a water well, but we're in a dilapidated classroom, and the kids were having to climb down into this water well to get water that was clearly very contaminated, and the children were dying. And the livestock were falling into this thing and decomposing. I mean, it was just horrible. So we installed a water well there shortly after our first visit because we could tell it was just urgent. And now when we go back to Daba, they have classroom blocks everywhere. They have dormitories. There's a medical clinic there. The water system is distributing water to more people move in once there's a reliable source of water. So 6,000 people in the main community. But because so many more people are moving toward not just the water system, but like the education and this new community organization that is helping everything develop. Commerce is increasing. Wow. Economics are going up. The girls in that community are going to school in the 8th grade for the first time ever in the history of that area.
Wow.
Yeah. So we just did a second borehole 2 summers ago in that same area to accommodate like the additional people that were moving in to be supported by that system. And it's a counterintuitive thing, but I do like to mention that once there's clean water readily available for a long time in a community, the birth rate goes down and people can better manage and do their family planning and send the kids to school, and the economics go up. So there's a lot of impact that people don't understand and a ripple effect that comes from installing a project like this properly that will transform the area forever.
That's a funny thought, really.
Mm-hmm.
Not funny, haha, but kind of interesting to think about how water and education can change the birth rate. I think when you don't have to worry about 3 out of 4 of your children dying.
Exactly.
You don't have to go through that many pregnancies. You don't have to risk your own life that many times.
Right.
And you can have a little bit more of a resource-rich environment. That's incredible. And with that approach, what was different? What was different with that approach versus what you had seen previously?
We see a lot of really well-intended work in this field that is a template solution. We also see a lot of the hand-dug water systems with the hand pumps being installed, which I think is entirely appropriate in a disaster relief situation. But for sustainability, they simply don't last. They're easily contaminated, and you can't do much more with the water beyond drinking water for, a few hundred people. So we really try to encourage people in the business to shift away from that kind of a model. Mm-hmm. But also it's, we did a study actually at the beginning of 2014 where we collected data on 200 or more than 200 broken water systems in Kenya. And we found that the number one reason for project failure was some kind of technical oversight. So that too is because you can't apply a template to communities that are just so different, even within the same country. There's so many nuances and cultural differences. So the technical oversight would be something like it wasn't drilled deep enough, the wrong sized pump was installed, or the distribution was done incorrectly. So there's that. But then a really close second reason for project failure was the lack of community engagement and training and involvement.
That seems huge, right? Where you're more or less there, you're facilitating a project and making sure there's not some small oversight or small kind of a mistake keeping the project from being completed.
Yes.
But keeping the community involved the entire way through.
Yep.
And so do the communities reach out to you, or do you seek out communities that you think would be a good fit, or a little bit of both?
We don't really seek them out anymore. We do in Kenya specifically. The communities kind of know who we are now. So we're in the different regions where we're working, we have people approach us when we're there and let us know, like, our community is just 10 kilometers that way. But what we do is we start with a project request form that we distribute when we're there, but most people apply online, mostly via Facebook.
Wow.
So we have it available.
Shout out Zuckerberg.
Right. I know. I think we probably get more than 80% of our project request forms submitted via Facebook.
Wow. That's awesome.
Which is fantastic. And then it goes through a pre-qualification checklist, and then we do a field evaluation. And from the very first time that we set foot in a new community, all we do is ask questions. So we're not trying to tell anybody what they need or what we think that they should want. We just want to know what their plans for development are, what their history is with, different attempts with community development. And then from there, we begin to design the work.
That's true education.
Yeah, it is.
If the world could just ask better questions.
I know, and just sit and have tea for 3 hours and just listen,
Exactly. Well, that's why our friend Joe Rogan is so great at what he does. Is he asks great questions and sits with people for 3 hours. And
it's a good model.
Yeah, it works out. So, Brian, you've seen a lot of businesses come through with your co-working space with, what are the requirements to be a part of what you're working on as a business?
The main thing is we have a screening process on the front end. Our community advocate or community manager has conversations with people. We don't necessarily have 3 hours, but we try to spend 10 to 15 minutes with each applicant looking to come into the community. Right?
3 hours there is 15 minutes here. That's about right.
Exactly. It's a fair trade-off. So yeah, we sit down and we just have conversations with people, and we really ask them, how are they looking to use their unique genius, whatever it is they're practicing in the world? How are they looking to utilize that in the community to better the community? And are they also willing to use their skill set to also collaborate with other people in the community? So are they really open-minded, or are they maybe more focused on their individual goal of, if it's more specifically making money? That's great, but we really focus on the side that is impact focused. So people using business for good on the for-profit and nonprofit side. So really we have those questions. Is not specifically what is it that you do, because we do have a lot of for-profits and nonprofits and B corporations that are in the space. But we really just try to, at the end of the day, we try to filter or have conversations and encourage people to join the community that are interested in being around other individuals that are also using business for good.
So when you say business for good, and I'd like to hear what both you guys have to say about this, like, what does it mean to use business for good? Because that's a kind of an obtuse statement, right?
Yeah. It is. It's subjective, and I think it, we think about it as culture. Like, we're creating a culture in each of the spaces that we're creating, and we're really co-creating it with every person that we add, right? It's an organism. It's a living organism, really, and it is a culture, and it's a study, and we're responsible. We're the shepherds. We look at ourselves as the hosts for that, and really it should be very subtle. And the very front end is where our kind of the most heavy-handed, but fortunately we walk people through the space and they self-select, like, do I want to apply? And fortunately our marketing team and the folks that we're aimed at connecting with in the community, our team has done a really good job of doing that. So we really don't turn many people away. But what happens is if somebody comes in here that has different desires, wants, and needs to be served by their co-working community or shared community, we have great connections with other people in town, and we'll just refer them over to maybe check that other community out, because it might be a better fit for them in the end.
Well, that's an approach with true abundance.
Yeah.
It's the fit's better than the volume.
Totally.
That's awesome.
And in the co-working business, right, we really are co-working if we're doing that as a city, right? Versus like we're competing and collaborating. It's like you don't compete for collaboration, you just collaborate, right?
You don't compete for collaboration.
Right. Like, oh, we won collaboration this year. It's like, oh, you kind of missed the point. So to your point, right, like just practicing that abundance. And honestly, that's it's so interesting how it's all a journey. And I grew up in Atlanta. And, it's not the biggest city in the country, but it does have that big city mentality. And it kind of does, it's a great, very hospitable community. And at the same time in the workplace, it is kind of dog eat dog.
Very much so, yeah.
And so there was a recovery that happened for me by moving to Austin. And Austin, I think, has this way with people, and it definitely had its way with me, where it really helped me understand that there is this sense of abundance and people really do want to support and collaborate with each other, even in the same industry. And that was a big learning for me. And I don't think that I think maybe I had that from team sports and things that I've been up to in the past, but I didn't understand that it was that possible in business. And now I see it on a daily basis. And that's what our business, it's really what our whole business is about. It's about community and supporting and nurturing people on the most important things that they're up to in life. We also have a lot of weddings in our event space as well. So it's really neat to see the kind of the people that we've been able to attract on our team. I'm just really flattered by, and how they just have such a service mentality. And then that kind of echoes with our community members, right? Because that's the people that are interviewing people to come into our community. We've been very fortunate to be selective, but like I said, I think people walk through the space and like, oh, it's a little too open for me. It's a little too fluid. People are like really connecting with each other. And if people don't want that, they might choose to go somewhere else, given that it is a pretty quiet environment, but we are, our goal is to be, connected in a healthy way and not just socializing the whole time.
When you're leading with your authentic, the authentic expression of what your business is, and if people are going to resonate with that or not. And that's the beauty in transparency now, in the transparent culture that we have, where it's really easy to sniff out the bullshit in a lot of business. And there's a lot, and Austin has a way with business. And I will say that it's, if you try to have that more cutthroat approach in this ecosystem, you may get punished for it, And when I ask that a business for good, it's funny because I think about on the global scale, like McDonald's, right? Well, donates a ton of money to health initiatives, but do they put the practice in their own in their own situation?
I'll say this in short, Sarah. I'd love to hear what you had to say, but we're on a podcast. You can't see the odds. Connor was looking at me, so I'm going to answer first, and I'll be quick about it. And I'm going to get back to my beer.
Brian's like 7 beers in, by the way, everybody.
9.
Connor, you and I are beating Brian. We're second.
Really are?
Yeah, they're ahead of me. I'm just a lightweight.
We win.
Sarah's winning collaboration right now. I would say, one of the things in the measure is integrity. Yeah. Do we feel an alignment and integrity with the product that we're producing? And I would challenge some of the folks that say, look, we are making a ton of money by doing X. And that could be destroying the world or people's bodies or whatever it is. And we're making up for it. We're buying our conscious back into balance. In my mind, that's not okay. That's good. That's better than destroying without trying to find balance as well. Yeah. And I think a lot of organizations are working towards being more conscious. And I think that's because the consumer is becoming a lot more educated, and thank the powers that be for that.
Yeah.
And I think that is really, really neat. And I think as the younger generations are becoming adults, right, and making the decisions and swaying things, I think that is a very big part in the reason that we're listening, because they're following the dollars.
Yeah.
And the dollars are becoming more educated in the impact that it has on their own person and the world at large. So I think that that there's a lot within that. So when I say business for good and all of that, I really think about from the moment we wake up to the moment we lay our head on the pillow at night, what we are using our skill set and our energy towards. Is it aimed at making a positive impact in our own integrity, right? And I think that the work needs to be done also, like Sarah had mentioned before, definitely a journey for me and my own ego, right? But really being in healthy relationship with the ego and purpose and integrity and something greater, and whatever that looks like for the individual. But I think when you come from that place, we just have to trust that we're all doing the best that we can with what we got, and that we're not, hopefully that we're not being driven by our ego. And if we are, that we're beginning to work on that. There's no perfection around that, but having some sense of grace with ourselves on the journey.
I love it. I love it. So Sarah, business for good.
Yeah, well, and I wanted just to add about Brian and his model, because I've been in one of his co-working spaces for 3 years now, I think.
Wow. I call it our space, but
I do feel like I kind of own the place sometimes. Just kidding.
Totally does.
I act like I do anyway. I've noticed that companies or sole proprietors that have come into this space that haven't done a lot in philanthropy or work for good in the past are surrounded by all of these other people that do, and we kind of just bring them into the social good, sort of mentality and work, because I've worked with so many different companies in this space who just have, heard about what we do, and we have a presence here all the time, who have just wanted to help. And they become donors or just, supporters or do work for free. And so it's been really cool to watch that happen over the past 3 years here. So I just wanted to add to that.
Well, isn't that the beautiful part about like the energetic environment?
Yeah.
You know, because if someone, I think that maybe if their business is out of alignment with themselves, and they surround themselves with people who have kind of figured that piece out, it may just shake them into a better alignment with their own mission.
Yeah.
They may, restructure or really find their why or find their drive.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing opportunity too. And I think there's something, if you really genuinely connect with people, you can sense if that's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. Yeah. It's a business for good, people will figure out how to do it.
People figure out it happens.
And I can help.
You heard it here, guys. If you want to do business for good, Sarah will help you.
Have all the answers. All of them. It's interesting to speak to this from the nonprofit side. We exist for good. But now that we've recently launched the for-profit, it's on the top of my mind, because the reason that the new company exists is to meet the same purpose that the nonprofit exists. But it is an interesting new world that I'm trying to negotiate, again, with the help of some amazing people, to maintain that focus while still having a model that will turn a profit, to be able to scale more rapidly, to be able to do more work. So this is kind of new to me, but I'm looking to people like Brian and other people who run their businesses for good with integrity in such a beautiful and successful way. So I'm learning, and I'm grateful for all the advice.
So that is a different entrepreneurial ambitions are a lot different actually than I would think than being a lawyer, where you're kind of that's a different mindset for sure.
Totally different. Yeah.
And then you're using it. I'm sure it's completely passion driven, because you're using it to fuel the nonprofit side.
Exactly.
And, I mean, that's a nice dichotomy that you built for yourself there.
We'll see. I'll tell you in a year.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, I grew up in the oil and gas industry.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm familiar with putting holes in the ground.
Yep.
But it kind of once I started checking in with myself and saw what we were doing, and I saw some things that it created a lot of empathy around people who were doing damaging work without any idea what they were doing.
Of course.
Because it becomes second nature.
It's true.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been around an oil well that's being drilled.
I have.
But it's, I'm sure you've seen that, and the work that goes into that. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
It's a necessary situation, but it's different whenever you go and you experience that type of business, and then you step away from it all, and you kind of get to look from the outside in and understand that there's not even a lot of incentive to change it from within. From the top down, it's driven by, I don't know. It's almost like it doesn't have its own awareness as a business. That's a conscious business. Doesn't have awareness of itself and the damage that it could be causing, and that even just a 5% intention to move forward and progress would be huge. If you're spending $100 million a day just to research new oil wells, if you spent half of that trying to just funding alternative energy sources, that might make a huge difference.
It would make a huge difference.
It would, without a doubt. Yeah. Or understanding what the impact can be on the entire world. But you come from a place that's not coming from a place of abundance, in my opinion. When there's this, and this goes back into creating more within that same cycle of toxicity. I don't want to say that word in that context, but it's hard.
I want to do my best to make a Fun Friday parallel here, and it involves Sarah Evans and Elon Musk. How do you feel about that?
There we go.
I would consider both of you game changers in the efficiency that Well Aware is able to execute on wells is game changing, and a lot of people are paying attention to what Well Aware is doing in Aurora around, wow, they're doing something at a remarkably 2x more efficient. I'm not going to get into numbers.
That's about right, yeah.
Yeah. 2 times more efficient, so your money goes twice as far with Well Aware or Project Aurora's involved in. I don't get commissions for this. I just know it because I'm around it, and I'm really impressed by it. And looking at what Tesla has done. Yeah. And now they have what's the base price on the new product? It's $25,000 or $28,000. on their new car.
You're getting out the door at like 32, I think.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
It's amazing, right? And he has,
Yeah,
390,000 cars pre-sold?
It's amazing.
I didn't know that, but that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. Maybe that's a wait list. Maybe that's a letter of intent, but he has that many contracts in it, whatever that means.
They're going to be everywhere.
They're going to be everywhere. So about being informed consumers, they're changing the market. So hopefully, I don't see any other way that can happen other than that rippling towards the folks when their oil isn't as valuable as it once was, and they start to look around. Why is that? There's these electric cars going around that are being powered by wind, or however it's happening.
There will be ways to fuel things that we don't even understand right now.
Exactly, and they exist, and we just haven't been informed yet,
exactly.
right? I believe. So I think there is no other way about it. It's a matter of how much time. I don't think it's an if, it's more of a when.
Exactly.
And that's really exciting. It's a really exciting time to live right now.
It is, yeah.
Where that's all true.
Yeah,
This is
those
all
things
true.
are changing, and change is hard, and that's why things are rough. But I agree. It's
I
exciting.
mean, it's very clear that we're in a state of flux as a culture, you know, and I live in no illusion that we're in a bubble in Austin where we can have awesome co-working spaces full of really well-intentioned businesses that are successful.
Connor, are you saying the barbecue is not this good everywhere?
In Texas, it's pretty good everywhere.
Okay.
I can testify to that.
But like everywhere in the country, it's not this good?
so.
It's completely a bubble.
It's a taco
Kansas.
barbecue.
Oh, Kansas,
business bubble.
it's on. Bring it. Let's have a cook-off.
Completely lost my train of thought.
Let's live in a bubble. I start thinking about barbecue. That's
It's
where I
okay.
go.
No,
Beer. I'm thinking about barbecue.
we're a few beers in. Barbecue is the next logical move. No, we're clearly in a bubble, and we have an idea of where the world can go, and almost like we end up in a sense of like pretentiousness whenever we step outside of that and
Totally.
and try
yeah.
like, well, don't you know about this? Don't you
Yeah.
know about how cattle are treated? Don't you know? And it's people don't fucking know. They have no idea, and it's a wild experience, like a wild ride, watching the entire cultural shift of you can't ignore it anymore. Like there gets to be a point where the tipping point is you can feel it coming, where you can feel the tipping point's about to happen, where people go, oh shit. Like I call it like forced reflection, and this happens within our own lives. Like either you're going to choose to have this reflection on yourself and see the patterns in yourself and make changes and become mindful of your action, or something's going to do that for you.
Yeah.
The universe, God, life, whatever you want to call it. Now, businesses have that, relationships have that, cultures have that, and it's inevitable. And it's inevitable with the more selfish your culture is, the faster you're cranking the clock to get to that moment, and the faster that tipping point will come. And we seem to, and I think this can go back to the education system and how we're taught what our history was, but to ignore the fact that the people that did atrocious things in our past weren't that much different than us. You know, it wasn't that long ago that Genghis Khan was killing millions of people with swords. That was 600 years ago. That's like a blink of an eye in the whole scheme of things. And we get insulated from the fact that we are creatures of folly in a way, you know, and through our folly we become wiser and wiser, and we got smart enough to insulate ourselves from our mistakes, and that may be causing more damage than we know.
That is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to look back and be like, oh shit, the way we treated animals was really, and the planet and just life in general,
other.
the way we treated life as a greater piece has been the most shameful actions of our time, in my opinion. Yeah. And it takes one person at a time to stand up and be like, you know what? I don't know about this. I don't know about the way we're marketed to constantly. I don't know about the consequences of our action. It just doesn't seem to make sense. It doesn't seem to make sense that we need new clothes all the fucking time, and that's polluting something. Anything. If it's polluting a pond in West Virginia, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Much less the ocean.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a good point. We're insulating ourselves from all the repercussions of our actions.
I was going to ask if you guys could help clean up how I think I've misremembered this saying, but the most informed or educated or resourced individual in the room has the most responsibility. Have you heard that before?
It makes a lot of sense.
Right? And I think that my experience is that when we are able to take that level of ownership in a humble and empathetic way, knowing that people are doing their best and the folks that are working the oil wells in a way that they don't have the knowledge just yet, that we can approach in an empathetic way and maybe not speak to, but have a conversation with, to Sarah's point, so that both sides really are getting educated, because it's so curious, like, to have that conversation and really understand how maybe another individual is kind of living that way. And I don't want to get too far into the psycho-emotional concept of it, but why is the individual buying endless clothes?
Do you need another beer to do that?
Yes, I'm going to shotgun this one. Oh, gotta commit to it.
I want to hear it.
But like, just like, those things are true. When people are having those behaviors, very often they're motivated by a sense or a place of unfulfillment or lack of fulfillment. Yep. Of something, and something's potentially being covered up. So
fear,
fear, right? And so if there's an opportunity to have a genuine, authentic conversation, for someone to have that revelation and start to work on that thing, to then start living a life where they are starting to live more open versus living from a place of wearing a mask of something else. That's the society, that's the world that I believe that we're living into. And these conversations, I don't think they weren't happening, right? Wow. When we think about it, I mean, you could say Genghis Khan 600 years ago. When you look at it over time, some of the judgments and slander and all that kind of stuff that happens today, if you looked at it on a scale, and some weird scale that's happening inside my head, things end up becoming relative.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So I just think that if we could think about it that way, that is a sword that person is using to slight, with their words or with their actions or with their judgments that they're not even uttering. I think it's really interesting when we start to become more conscious or aware of how our internal world and the world that we're creating is shaping things.
And I like how you say the world we're creating. Just that, if you can wrap your mind around that understanding of yourself and your experience, that can create a little bit of space where compassion can take the place of judgment, and you can approach situations and people with compassion, and that actually does some healing. That does some healing. I mean, it's just a little tiny speck of healing in the collective consciousness. That's super powerful if you can expound that over millions of interactions. And that's what that's what I intend to do with this. That's what we all. I mean, a lot of people that are in this world, that we can reach millions of people on a thing in their hand, and it's a phone or whatever it is, and even you've seen that with social media where people are applying via Facebook. It's a change there into what in 10 years will have completely changed the next generation's life. It's incredible how we can use the tools at hand to defend or share or express.
It's interesting. I have read some stuff that posits that social media in a way is further isolating people, because we just put ourselves in certain groups, or only like hide certain friends, and we just are in our own little echo chambers on each platform. I do think it can be a really good tool, and it has been, but I wish there were a way to get people back together. So, and there's an MLK quote, and I would butcher it if I tried to say it, so I'm not, but it's something to the effect of the more time you spend with somebody new, the more you understand, which leads to empathy, which leads to like a complete elimination of judgment. So, getting people back together somehow, like tearing back down the walls, I think is the way to further in true empathy and getting to the point that we're talking about.
Yeah, and empathy is a big component of the medicine the world. I feel like the world needs, especially in the Western culture.
Really does.
We have such abundance, and we. Not that it completely needs to be torn to pieces and we're going to go Mad Max in this place, but there is a place for a little bit of space and a little bit of slow down and find the ground and be. And like I said, we're in a bubble where I can say that to most people who live are around me all the time, and that's universally accepted, where it's, it's nice, chill, relaxed co-working spaces where people can move forward, and it's hey man, you need to go walk in the grass with your shoes off in the middle of the day. Like, that's cool, bro. but there's being a bridge to whoever you can be a bridge to from that place of consciousness is super important, because you may be a meathead, right? Like a meathead that has like this kind of, I had this conversation today, that's why I'm saying that. This guy's like, I've been identified as like a meathead for so long but I have this draw to share and to show like what meditation has done for me and these things, but it's so hard to approach that. But it's just, everybody who has any kind, whatever your past experience up to this present moment is, like, you can be a bridge and a communicator for that kind of greater sense of being and fulfillment, and whatever that means to you, and the way that you speak it, the way you share it, the way you communicate it, and that even goes to the greater manifestation in how you work and what your business is. Like, those are all pieces of you.
I was gonna I wanted to echo, Sarah, what you shared earlier about that trip, that fateful trip,
the
first trip,
the pivot,
January 2010.
There you go. And it brings me to just the importance of travel, the importance of getting out of our bubble. Connor, to your point, I went to Thailand with Habitat for Humanity in 2004. I'll never forget it, because I left like 25 days before the tsunami hit Thailand. And it was, there's a lot in that, and I won't go too far into it other than to say, for the purpose of this conversation, just, was it Gandhi? Let the world change you, and then you can change the world, or begin to.
It's perfect,
Right, and I just think that whether we are physically getting out or reading about other cultures and other philosophies and other ways of being, I just feel like it's so important and it's so invaluable to get out of our bubble, to your point, to expand our horizons, and to expand our horizons within our bubble. In all kinds of ways. So I just, that trip changed my life. I mean, it was never the same after that trip, and the course and trajectory of my life was never the same. It totally altered it, and for the better, in my opinion. So I just think that's something really to celebrate. And I think that being in community, or having a couple of relationships, sometimes it's just that one best friend that you can share anything with, that you feel the comfort in that conversation to say, I'm going to go do this thing. I don't think anyone in my life will understand it, but you do. So I don't know, I'm really moved in this moment by this conversation. I think, from talking and getting to know each of you, Sarah, we've been close for a number of years now, and Connor, I feel like we've gotten close over a really short time, but pretty deeply in the conversations. But just how important that is, it just never ceases to amaze me when I look around by the people that I'm surrounded with. I feel really, just really honored and flattered. And it's definitely not vacant from this room and this space and this beer time with these microphones.
Oh, Beer 30 Friday happy hour.
But I feel the same way. I think in the very beginning days and months of starting this organization, I kind of felt like I just needed to do it all. And over time, I realized that it was fine to ask for help and ask for advice and ask for guidance, and it changed everything. And now I tell people I don't have many skills at all, except for I recruit really great people and keep them around, because it's so important. That's the secret.
Well, that's even Warren Buffett says that.
Oh man, I just totally stole Warren
Well,
Buffett's business model. It's great. Actually, it's great.
Not a bad person to steal the business model.
So it's a Sarah sandwich with Warren and Elon bread.
Yeah,
you just like go there all there.
I don't know what you mean, but whatever. I'm in.
The Venn diagram of Warren Buffett and Elon Musk is, if you put those together, a little gray area in the middle is Sarah.
Yeah. He's very humble and super intelligent and an amazing connector.
Amazing connector. That's when you can gather people and feel people and see people for who they are and their intentions and put them in a place where they can be in alignment with their greatest purpose.
Yeah.
And that by the grace of God, like lets them change the lives of many others or one other person, you know, and if that person
themselves.
may be their kid, that could be, or them, you know, but just in bringing a different version and a better version of themselves to their work, their interactions, their environment is beautiful. And that's a skill that is underappreciated. I feel like in the world we live in today, and something when you can, but it's so clear when you know what you're looking for to see that in someone.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Two things come up for me is bravery, the bravery to be seen, right? And the patience and willingness to like slow down enough to look another human in the eyes. And there was another word, but bravery just really, we mentioned vulnerability earlier. Can't get enough of that one. But
I'm
really
still working on that one.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Totally.
That doesn't ever stop, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to being a human.
Connor was
Damn it, I'm human.
I know, right?
Connor was gonna put a video on this, and I was relieved when it wasn't on.
Me too.
Because like just
Technical malfunction. Thank God.
I think Sarah hacked it.
Software updates. Yeah.
I think Sarah
Called me,
secretly
I was like,
hacked
hey,
it.
bro.
You know?
I did.
But yeah, just the being seen. It's always being seen in vulnerability. It's always a
That's
stretch.
tough. Yeah,
you know?
the bravery to be seen. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and that's being able to being willing to see others is huge.
That
You
too,
think about
yeah.
there's so many practices like mindfulness practices that are around like eye gazing meditation, or Christine Hassler actually did a practice right next door here where we're sitting, where she lines people up with someone that they don't know well. And this was at a love workshop, and they talk about self-love, love of others, and then bringing like a union to your loving relationships. And Christine's fantastic. If you haven't seen or heard from her, she's amazing. But she has a practice where you line up essentially across from each other about 10 feet or so, and you just connect eyes
With a partner or a
partner.
stranger? Okay.
Well, it's a lot of people there were there with their partners, but they mixed up for the group, so it's with a stranger.
Wow.
And based upon the feeling you get from that connection,
Yeah.
you take a step forward or take a step back. So you have
could
to
be
be
devastating.
super engaged. But
Sarah would have run away from me a long time ago.
I would be in Waco. I
just turns around and walks off. No, not for me.
Vulnerability is not my strength.
But why is your chair sliding backwards, Sarah?
And Sarah's gone.
Drink more beer. That's all. This is how I cope.
But just exactly. I mean, even you like a visceral response with the idea of that practice, and that one girl. I mean, people started breaking down. You know, people start breaking down in those environments. But it's another form of forced reflection to be like, holy shit, it's really that hard. And you at least you know it about yourself. A lot of people don't even have any idea. It's like, and I'm sure you address it when it's comes up. Maybe, I don't know. I'm making assumptions now. Look at me.
I'm trying. I mean, it took me a while to get to a point that I realized I wanted to address it. I always knew it was a thing. I was sort of raised to just sort of shut things out and move on and cowboy up.
Yeah.
It's just funny because I'm a girl, but whatever.
Where are you from, Sarah?
So I was born in Australia. My parents were hippies.
Oh, okay.
So we lived in this community in rural New South Wales until I was 5, off the grid, lived off the land. Then we moved when I was 5 to deep East Texas, Bible Belt, East Texas, and so the cultural change was abrupt, I guess. And so as a 5-year-old, it was interesting navigating all of that. But so I spent the rest of my young life until college in that small town in East Texas.
Very nice. And then you ended up being a lawyer.
Yeah, I did. I went to UT undergrad, then I went up to SMU for law school. And at that time in my life, I just wanted to get out of East Texas and make money and just support myself and be fancy. And then things changed.
Yeah, then things changed as they seem to do. So you said you had the propensity to like shut off.
Yeah, and I still fight it, but I understand better now through like a great life coach and friends and relationships that vulnerability is a strength and not a weakness.
It's a skill too.
And a skill that you have to really work on, apparently. I think some people just sort of are born with a better ability, but I do certainly understand the value now.
Absolutely. It's great.
Yeah. Brian has helped with that. He's coached me through some hiring things and, staffing stuff and board stuff and just not being so, just closed all the time, that really being vulnerable, even just being sad or being, honest about something that is painful can really strengthen a relationship in all different kinds of ways.
Brian's a pretty cool guy.
He's all right. He brings beer, so he's
He
great.
brought the beer for sure. So do you see, obviously you're a leader, you're a CEO are you CEO of both?
Yes. Yeah.
So do you feel like that was a little easier route to take? Was it be like the closed off, strong, assertive woman as a response to kind of that role in being a lawyer too, in that world?
Certainly in that world. And
Yeah.
even though in law school I thought I was going to be Erin Brockovich and save the world because I worked for the EPA, I ended up in finance. So I did securities law right out of law school because I got a really great job. So absolutely in that role, it probably did help that I was that way there. But I think I thought that being that way in the work I do now was the right way to go, but I realized that it wasn't, and it wasn't until I got some really good advice to consider making that shift and just experiment with it from time to time that I realized it was going to make everybody stronger and make the team better.
I love it.
I can tell you about an incident.
You absolutely can.
So
Yes. Thank you for asking permission.
Well, to this point, because it was an accident and it was so enlightening. So a couple of years ago, I had been group texting with my staff about, I don't know, something, brochures or something very important, I'm sure. But I was having a horrible day. I'd just broken up with a boyfriend or something, and I thought I was texting my best friend, and I said, I'm sorry I'm being so short today. I feel like I'm going to cry. I don't know what to do. I'm not really sure how to take care of myself right now. And I accidentally sent it to my staff.
Ooh.
I was blown away by the responses. Each of them had texted me back individually saying, hey, do you want to talk? Like, hey, I've been there. And when I got back, this was on a Friday. So when I came back to the office on a Monday, everybody was just so nice and supportive. And it was all like warm and fuzzy. It was so awkward.
Okay, I'm leaving.
You're trying to run a meeting and you're like, everybody's just like looking at you with like,
You all right?
are you
It's
okay?
cool.
It's going to be okay.
Want to go shopping later? I don't know. So it was such a great, beautiful accident, and I learned from that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's cool.
I have to mention Bob Ross and the Happy Accidents. If you haven't watched, I hope this makes, but if Connor's going to edit, he might take out some beats. But I hope you don't, of all the
Nobody
things
who
being
hasn't
said.
seen Bob Ross.
But
Everybody.
Bob Ross remix, have you seen the Bob Ross remix?
No.
Oh my God.
We'll have to drop the link in there somewhere.
Drop a link in there. It just, when life gets a little too serious, watch the Bob Ross remix. Oh, what a guy.
That guy had an approach. He's a philosopher.
Yeah.
Low key.
Were you going to say that guy had an approach?
He had an approach.
He
to
had an
life.
approach. He did. That was so great. He just went for it. I love it.
For it, man. There'll be one day. It's like it was, in 1,000 years, it'll be Seneca, and there'll be an Alan Watts, and there'll be a Bob Ross, like the collections of Bob Ross.
All hail Bob Ross.
That's not a mistake. That's a tree. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're missing out on life. Go in there. You'll figure that out. Well, guys, we're coming up on an hour, and this has been really, really fun. Yeah.
That's so great.
It's so fun.
That's so
let's talk a little bit about how people can connect with you and Willowware and what you're doing, and if they have just stacks of cash sitting around, that they can give it all to you and you can save the world.
We love people with stacks of cash.
Oh, okay. Can we still be friends?
Absolutely.
That's why I brought beers.
I don't know many of them. I'm just saying.
How can
I love people with stacks of cash and people with beer.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we're all,
okay.
and people podcasts.
People.
Everyone's covered
So
in this room.
how
Okay,
can people
check.
get involved with what you're doing, Sarah?
Um,
Oh, man.
So our website is wellawareworld.org, and we have a lot of info there. We do have a mini documentary that's not yet available, but after talking to you, Connor, I will put it up tomorrow. So we'll make sure that's there.
Yeah, look at
and
me inspiring the world with sweet documentaries.
I know,
You're
right?
welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Connor. And then we have a presence on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and the handle is WellAwareWorld for all of those. And we post a lot of content. We have a really incredible social media interns, and they make it look real nice and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, what do you got going on? Where do you want people to connect with all your fun projects?
So VukaCollective.com is I call it the Axis Mundi, the center point for all the things that we do. So you can find Impact Hub Austin, which is connected to a network of over 100 locations around the world of communities of folks looking to make a positive impact on the world. So ImpactHubAustin.com, you can go there. You can go through Vuka Collective. You can go to gathervenues.com for our event space, and we do sliding scale for nonprofits and social causes. And then we're actually going to be kicking off very soon Wake Up Wednesdays. Wake Up Wednesdays, where we're going to be having from 7:30 to 9 a.m. conversations about important things that are going on in life live in Austin. And we'll look at having those streamed as well. So wakeupco.com for that. Feel free to sign up on the newsletter and just say that you're interested, and we'll let you know when those start happening here in the Austin area.
I love it, guys. Well, this has been a fantastic talk, and I appreciate you guys taking a little time for me on your Friday night. Let's go get some more beers. What y'all think?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a
Sounds
lot.
great.
I've got more in the fridge, too.
Fantastic.
Come on over, guys.
Thanks
We'll
so
see
much
y'all
for
soon.
having us.
Cheers.
Of course. Well, guys, that's our show. I hope you enjoyed it. Go check out Brian and Sarah at wellawareworld.org and vukacollective.com. I'm really excited to have them on the show. Hopefully we'll see them on again soon. And again, if you love the show, go give us a 5-star review. If you're down to join the community, go to Pleasure Monkey Life on Facebook. Request access. It is free of charge for the first 1,000 members. And I'm loving the communication in that group. If you're in that group now, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for sharing. It's a place where you can come, be transparent, be your authentic self, and share with other people. It's a great community. I'm super proud of what everybody's put into that community to make it what it is today. Super excited. So thank you guys so much. We will see y'all next time. Have a great week.